कंगना रियली गुड टू सी यू। जब भी आप करती हैं सब कुछ कमाल करती हैं। जो आपने किया दैट इज काबिल तारीफ है जो आपने किया। और इतनी बेबाकी से आपने सुना, लेकिन मैं पूरा थ्रोट बैठा था और आप पे ध्यान था। बहुत बेबाकी से आपने सब कुछ पूछा।
सेंटर में
मैं जानना चाहूँगा ये सवाल सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चन था, ये आपको दिया गया था या आपकी खुद की मन की बात?
गड़बड़ हो गया।
क्वेश्चन मुझे किसी ने नहीं दिए। इनफैक्ट जब मुझसे पूछा भी कि क्वेश्चंस क्या है तो मैंने कहा मैं क्यों क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ कि क्वेश्चन क्या है। सो आई वाज लाइक सो नो दीज आर माय क्वेश्चंस एंड वो मैं कई दिनों से सोच रही थी। और मुझे ऐसे भी सदगुरु से पूछने थे क्वेश्चन, तो मैंने सोचा मैं अकेले में पूछूंगी या पर्सनली 4-5 दोस्त पूछेंगे तो ये बहुत ही पर्सनल से कॉन्वर्सेशन बन जाएगी। मेरा वो पर्सनल क्वेश्चन था ही नहीं, तो मैंने सोचा मैं इसको एक पब्लिक इवेंट के तौर पे, तो मेरे तरह जितने भी लोग कॉन्फ्लिक्टेड हैं, सिचुएशन के बारे में सोचते हैं, तो एटलीस्ट ये एक अच्छी चीज़ हो जाएगी जिसमें सब हिस्सा ले पाएंगे।
बहुत ऑनेस्ट जवाब, ऑनेस्ट तरीके से आपने बताया कि ये सवाल आपके थे। अमूमन कोई बैक ऑफ कर जाता कि आज जिस तरह के माहौल है, आपने लिखित का जिक्र किया, वो भी एक भावना आपकी रही होगी कि जिस तरह के हालात हिंदुस्तान में भी हैं।
हम लोगों ने इस बारे में ही अंदर काफ़ी बात की है और ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे पास किसी चीज़ों का सोल्यूशन है। वो जैसे लोग हैं, मिस्टेक है, थिंकर हैं, जिनको आई थिंक सबसे अच्छी बात यही है कि हमारी सोसाइटी में उनके जैसे लोग हैं जो इस चीज़ों के बारे में सोचते हैं और उनके पास उतना इंटेलेक्ट है जो कि इसकी बात, इसीलिए हम लोगों ने आज ये इंट्रैक्शन रखी थी। मेरे पास तो इस चीज़ों की सोल्यूशन नहीं है। मैं तो आप लोगों की तरह देखती रहती हूँ और सोचती रहती हूँ कि क्या होना चाहिए क्या नहीं होना चाहिए।
कंगना समाजी पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में आज आपने बात की, इलेक्शंस भी नियरबाय है, क्या कहना चाहिए?
आई जस्ट फील दैट जो मैंने इस बारे में अभी अंदर बात की कि किसी को हेट करना या किसी के बारे में करना, वो तो चलिए ठीक है, अपनी पर्सनल भावना हो सकती है, लेकिन उसके अलावा देश को कैसे यूनाइटेड किया जाए और उसको कैसे, जो इस वक्त हमारे देश की स्थिति है उसके बारे में क्या, उसके बारे में हमें बात करनी चाहिए। ये पॉइंटिंग फिंगर्स एट ईच अदर ये नहीं करना चाहिए हमें।
reporting against the PM of the government, is there a fear among them to speak against this establishment or make political content?
I think most of my contemporaries don't talk about it because obviously I was hearing some other days one of my contemporaries was saying कि हमको तो पानी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, हम क्यों बात करें? That hurts, like you cannot talk like that. What kind of an individual talks like that? You are a part of this country and it's not just about you. आपके घर में पानी आए तो ठीक है, आपके पड़ोसी के नहीं आया तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर आपके चाचा जी के यहाँ नहीं आया तो आपको दर्द हुआ। सो दिस एटीट्यूड इज़ नॉट गुड। और मुझे लगता है कि हमेशा ये आर्टिस्ट का ये कहना, अरे हम तो प्रॉब्लम में पड़ जाते हैं, हमें बात नहीं करनी चाहिए। आप बात नहीं करेंगे, जो सक्सेसफुल लोग हैं जिनके लिए 25 मीडिया कैमरास इकट्ठे होते हैं, तो कौन बात करेगा? फिर आप सक्सेसफुल हैं क्यों? फिर आपका मायना क्या है सक्सेस का? अपने पैसे कमाए, अपना खाए पिए और मस्ती की, दिस इज़ नॉट द रियल। आपको पेडेस्टल पे इसलिए नहीं रखा हुआ है कि आप अपनी छोटी सी ज़िंदगी जी के चलते बने। आपको पेडेस्टल पे इसीलिए जनता ने रखा हुआ है कि आप उनके बारे में भी सोचें।
आर यू स्पिरिचुअल और ये योगी का थॉट कैसे आ गया? ऐसा तो नहीं कर रही हैं आपकी, आप सबको छोड़ छाड़ के मतलब समाधि
सबको छोड़ छाड़ के समाधि। आई होप इतना मुझ में आए विजन या भगवान की ग्रेस हो, लेकिन अभी तो आई थिंक देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क टू डू एंड आई वांट टू वर्क इन एवरी डायरेक्शन वेयरएवर आई थिंक आई कैन। तो अभी छोड़ने का वक्त नहीं है, अभी तो वी विल डू थिंग्स एंड देयर इज टाइम फॉर एवरीथिंग।
बहुत वोकल है, जो हालात है देश में पॉलिटिकली भी आप बहुत वोकल है। हाल ही में आपने कहा कि
वैसे तो हमें मिलेगा नहीं, पूरा वो मिल गया।
मेरा क्वेश्चन इज समथिंग एल्स। मैं ये कह रहा था, क्या कभी आप पॉलिटिक्स को एज अ करियर एक ऑप्शन के तौर पे देखेंगे आगे, क्योंकि आप एक कंसर्न सिटीजन हैं?
नहीं, पॉलिटिक्स करियर नहीं होना चाहिए। मुझे लगता है जब भी कोई इंसान, अगर मेरे जैसे इंसान को पॉलिटिक्स में जाना चाहिए तो उनको पहले तो वैराग्य हासिल करना चाहिए कि जब भी आपको जनता की सेवा करनी है तो ऑब्वियसली इफ आई हैव अ फैमिली, आई हैव चिल्ड्रन, आई हैव टू गिव एवरीथिंग अप एंड देन ओनली आई शुड बी एबल टू सर्व द कंट्री। आई थिंक दैट शुड बी द इंटेंशन। करियर, इफ पॉलिटिक्स में करियर में इतनी सक्सेसफुल हूँ, अभी मेरा ये करियर है, मेरे को और कहीं करियर नहीं बनाना है, बट येस इफ आई वांट टू सर्व माय लैंड then the only option I see for myself is that I can't do it as where I have some vested interest in some other department, you know, because वो conflicting हो जाता है. तो I think जो भी लोग करना चाहते हैं करना चाहिए, मगर उनको किसी तरह से जो है वैराग्य हासिल
कल ना पुष्पाई की बात हो रही थी, आपने कहा आपने बताया कि चेंजेस की मांग, तो फाइनली क्या किया गया?
इसके लिए आपको फिल्म देखनी पड़ेगी.
कंगना मेरा सुनना है, मेरा भी लास्ट रहेगा, जो भी होगा लास्ट मेरा रहेगा.
Really topical stuff inside with Sadhguru, and most of it was very enlightening. Your special good beef and counting. I just wanted to know some clarity. How do you see?
सुन रही है क्वेश्चन यार?
Sure, no, I just want to know, where do you think India is heading at a time when people are being lynched for what they believe?
We spoke about it, and also I'm not. मेरे पास इसका answer है.
क्या नहीं
I gave my personal opinion. I mean, you heard that you feel conflicted. You know, you want to save the animals, but then the lynching happens. You feel not wrong. What is going on? You feel this is wrong. You know, so I spoke.
सुमित से थोड़ा पीछे होना, पीछे होने को बोलो ना सुमित को.
आपको लगता है कि जैसे और भी उन्होंने कहा कि मिला लेना चाहिए, आपको लगता है विद मिस्टर इमरान खान कमिंग अप इन द नेबरिंग कंट्री, यू थिंक द थिंग्स विल इंप्रूव बिटवीन?
Hopefully. I mean, we can only hope
Look center.
that we don't have to shed more blood. It's very unfortunate that our soldiers are dying, and of course the kind of speech Mr. Imran Khan has given is very, very nice, and I wish him all the best, and I with my folded hands I really hope and appeal that we have really beautiful relationship.
स्वतंत्रता दिवस आ रहा है, उसके उपलक्ष्य में आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगी और शुभकामनाएं भी हमारी सर से लेना चाहते हैं. पंखा लाओ.
So स्वतंत्रता दिवस की बहुत शुभकामनाएं सारे भारतवर्ष के लोगों को.
Namaskaram. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. And this is my first interview. I must say it's easier giving interview than interviewing. It's challenging. Sadhguru, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and thanks to all the volunteers who've worked so hard. So my first question to you is that when I first heard about you many years ago, I rolled my eyes and I muttered something about guru types. And until few months ago, when my sister gave me your book, Inner Engineering, which happens to be New York Times bestseller, it changed my perspective. And when I was working on this interaction, I came across few interviews of yours, one of them being with a senior writer from my field, and he was vehemently attacking you. Like he was trying to frame you for being fake, and he himself is accused of plagiarism. So my question is that why does a person connected to spirituality on its path is everyone feels entitled to judge them? And honestly, if it wasn't New York Times bestseller book, I would have not read it. What is it about the West, this West stamp that we can't do without it? I mean, there are so many books, and unless Americans don't approve of it, it just doesn't make sense. Why is that?
This is multiple questions. About people's resistance to someone like me. When I say someone like me, someone who has not messed with himself, okay? He didn't cut his hair, he didn't do anything, he's simply the way nature intended him to be. That's all the problem they have with me. They think you have to belong somewhere. You have to be this religion or this party or that party. You got to be something. Today, if you look at the world, now that you mentioned America, and it's also beginning to happen in our country in a big way, in imitation of United States, I would say. See, in United States, talk to anybody, they'll say, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. What this essentially means is, you have no clue what is democracy. If you say, I'm this, and my father also was this, and my grandfather also was a Republican, so this I am. What this means is, you have become a tribe.
You've become
a tribe, you know. Once you become a tribal war is inevitable. It's going to happen somewhere. Democracy means every time you must see these 5 years or 4 years, whatever the term, how they have functioned, and individually you make a choice whom to vote for. You already committed to vote to a particular party no matter what. This means you become a tribe. You've gone back to feudalistic way of living, but you're talking democratic language. So this has happened in a huge way in United States. So, these jokes keep going around. Someone trying to convert a Republican into a Democrat. So they came and asked, why don't you vote for Democrats? See what kind of president you got. So he said, no, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican, my father was a Republican, and my grandfather was a Republican. So I'm a Republican, that's it. So this guy asked, suppose your grandfather was a jackass and your father was a jackass, what would you be? He said, of course, a Democrat.
Okay.
So, we are taking things from there all the time, and in India also slowly we are moving in that direction, unfortunately. About New York Times New York Times a lot of things you could say about New York Times, but I think their president is speaking as to what is New York Times, I don't have to say a thing. We still have not got out of the Firang syndrome. You know what's Firang?
I know.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, we've still not gotten out of that Firang syndrome, it has to come from there. Today, why do you think so many people are talking about yoga? The yoga they're talking about in India is largely a rebound from the American coast. They're not talking about the yoga that is here. This is the source of yoga. And people's understanding of yoga is…
Sadhguru, that brings to me a question about our roots ingrained in yoga and spirituality. But where has it got us as a nation, as a country, as a continent? What has it given us? Like, I know what you say about karma bondage, and I will quote you. No, I'll quote you. If somebody… he says about karma, breaking karma bondage, that if somebody breaks your leg, don't go after that person's leg. Fix your leg and go your way. I understand, that sounds fantastic. But if somebody breaks your leg and you go your way, somebody again comes, break your leg, what do you do? And then
Why
others
do you think
see…
people are so much interested in your legs?
No, Sadhguru, you're literally taking it, but tell me, don't we have a history of 1,000 years of invasion after invasion, and didn't we grew up hearing this from our mothers that, oh, if somebody rubs you wrong way, the only thing that they say is, oh, Bhagwan dekh raha hai. What? So…
Say this,
I mean, we as a land, I mean, I don't know much about history, but this much I know that we as a land, we have not, and thanks to our spiritual education, that we have never gone to invade a continent or gone for a conquest like that. But where has it got us? Where has it landed us? So why not imitate West?
Okay. You must give me a few minutes.
Okay.
Because you raised a whole lot of things about history. So what has the spiritual process given us as a land, as a nation, as a culture? You must understand this. Let's understand this very clearly. Here we always focused on individual development. Because without creating great human beings, there is no great nation, there is no great culture, there is no great world. World, nation, society, these are just words. It's just you and me. What kind of people we are, that's a kind of society, that's a kind of nation, that's a kind of world we will live in. So we always focused on individual development. In this, we produce stellar human beings, absolutely fantastic human beings for thousands of years, who created a fantastic culture. And let me remind you, our safety was our geographical features. The Himalayan region, the Himalayan ranges, and the Indian Ocean, which was called as Hindu Sagara at one time. So this he and Hindu, together we made it Hindu. So you must understand, it is a geographical entity. We revered the mountains and the ocean because we knew our safety, our well-being and our cultural flourish and our economic prosperity of the time, everything depended on these two barriers which stopped people from invading and doing things. But then people found ways to cross the mountains and come across and come through the oceans, everything happened. So our problem was just this, we focused on human genius all the time, but we lacked organization. The West always focused on organization, but they did not focus on individual genius. For both there is a price. So now we have come to a place where we cannot ignore individual genius, we have to focus on that. At the same time, we need to learn to organize. That's what we are struggling at right now, that we want to organize.
Can I ask? So, Sadhguru, talking about spirituality, and like I questioned that, how practical is it in today's world whereas like the whole philosophy of spirituality or what…
No, spirituality is not a philosophy.
I know, it's a technique, it's a practice, which
No,
I also do.
no.
It's yoga.
No.
It's yoga, it's the ultimate union. Okay, so I know yoga is the ultimate union, and everything that we do as yoga is supposed to make us inclusive. Inclusive of everything. So let me finish, okay? So it is supposed to make us inclusive of our environment, and then further expanding that our country, our countrymen, and then the planet, and then the cosmos, and that it goes on. But my question is, and I want to present an example. I was in London, and you know what happens to when you are in a beautiful city with great infrastructure, you're with a couple of friends, and your Indian friends, they're always cursing India. You know, oh, this is so great, where we live is a piece of garbage. You know, and on all that, I felt so overwhelmed. I couldn't wait to get to my room, and when I got there, I was crying. I found myself crying, and I was muttering something of the effect that, you know, I mean, what do you expect, and, you know, why don't they have sympathy for their own land and all of that? And then I realized that identifying like that with your country, today I'm crying, tomorrow I might just punch somebody, and everybody will behave in their own way. So this kind of identification with your environment, with your country, with your religion, with your family is the root cause of all atrocities. So isn't that kind of, isn't it dangerous? Now don't tell me be inclusive, but still not be inclusive.
Don't try to answer for
no.
me.
I am not buying that answer. How can you be inclusive and yet not be inclusive? If you're inclusive, you're inclusive. Or you don't be inclusive.
Well, the city that you're appreciating of its infrastructure and its wealth and well-being, for 2 centuries was largely built on stolen money from this country. Well, we should not resent our history and develop animosity towards somebody, but at the same time, it's stupid to forget everything and go on as if nothing happened. That'll be absolutely stupid. That's a problem with us. One thing is, see, in this country, what has happened in those 200 years? Don't go back 1,000 years, there have been atrocities, that's a different matter. Even if you go back this 200 years, because we're talking about London, what's happened in this country is not a small thing. 6 million Jews died. They write and write and write about it, they make movies about it. Nobody is supposed to forget about it in the world, everybody is reminded every day how this atrocity happened to them. But The Bengal famine killed over 3.5 million people in a matter of 3 months because they took away all the food for the World War II effort. And this is not one. The governor in 1860 writes, "The fields of India are bleached by the bones of the hand weavers because they destroyed the handloom industry." Yesterday was Handloom Day or something, yes? From 1800 to 1860, in 60 years' time, an industry which has lasted for 10,000 years, they destroyed and left millions of people to die. It's recorded in British history, and in what they have written, not what we have written, because we write nothing. If we get our breakfast tomorrow, we're just happy. This is a big problem in India because we don't have a sense of history.
A history or revenge?
No, revenge is not needed because revenge will again waste your energy and your future is wasted if you go into revenge.
Sadhguru, this is what I don't get.
Now, let me finish this. About what is this spiritual process given to us, okay? The question is, why can't we be like them and be successful? See, why we are like this is because we have realized in a very profound way. Most Indian people may not know this consciously, but they know this by life. They may not be articulating this in their mind. Somewhere they know that their well-being is essentially coming from within. Outside arrangements we can make as we want, but me being joyful, peaceful, loving, blissful is most important. Well, that's why I said individually we did great, organization also we had great stuff, till outside people came who had no concern about anything that you think and feel and experience, everything was brutally uprooted, all right? I'll just tell you an example. For example, you've come to the yoga center, that region, there's one police station with about 12 to 14 policemen. About 4 are on night duty, that means about 8 or 9. 2, 3 will be always on leave. I'm saying literally there's no law, it's 250,000 people. There's literally no law at all, but still there's no crime. This is spiritual process, I'm telling you. You take away police in New York City, you take away the law enforcement in New York City or London that you're talking about, just see what'll happen in 3 hours' time.
Okay, so Sadhguru, this…
We need organization right now. To succeed as a nation, we need organization.
Yeah, but the way society has also been handling things is not great. It's not really the best thing. It's not we can't rely on a system like that. You mean like we are largely being organized by society, but that's not the most appropriate way. I mean, authority isn't either, but aren't there is at least a set of rules there. With society, they're really, I mean, more money you've got, you can literally get away with anything. So that's not the best way to go forward. What do you have to say about that?
Sure. You're saying in India?
In India, yes.
Yes. See, we need to understand this. When the British left this country, the average life expectancy in this country was 28 years, okay? The illiteracy was 93%. There was literally no industry, no infrastructure of any kind. People, some idiots talk about, oh, they built railways. They built railways because they want to move their troops and the goods out of the country. So railways were there, but what were they transporting on the railways? So there was literally no economic infrastructure. Administrative infrastructure in the form of civil services was there, that was to keep control. You just see what they were called. What were the local administrators called? They were called collectors. Even today, unfortunately, we're retaining the same appellation. Collector means what? They were just tax collectors. In many provinces, the taxes on the agricultural produce was 100%. Can you beat that?
Oh.
100% tax on everything that you grow. So this was a totally, absolutely demoralizing occupation that happened for over 200 years. And we are recovering from that. It's not a small thing.
I agree.
We've been just beaten down, no education, no nourishment, no economic infrastructure, all industry destroyed, we were just a resource for their industry. When this was done, systematically we've been exploited. Only problem with us was we didn't have an organization to fight them. We had small kingdoms which they played very well and they managed. This is a historical blunder on our side. There's no point cursing them. They did what was best for them. We could not do what was best for us. It's time for us to do what is best for us now.
But Sadhguru, tell me, like, we have such a…
saying headless chicken is supposed to be bad, yes, a chicken should have a head. It should also have 2 legs. It's important. But this is a headless cosmos, that is why it's so beautiful. So we are just an imitation of the cosmic nature of existence. We are also always headless. But this is why individual genius becomes of paramount importance, because each human being functioning at their peak is important to create a society which is as colorful and as diverse as possible. So what held us together? See, because you must understand this, there was a time when there were over 200 political entities in the form of kingdoms and empires and whatever. Many times people try to, unite them into one occupation, but later on it again broke up. Many times over 200 political establishments. In spite of that, in this nation people felt this is one nation, we call this Bharat, and people from outside, they also thought this is one nation, though there were 200 kings ruling the place. What is it? What do you think made them think this is one nation? Even today, if you go to Syria, Lebanon, you will see thousands of women especially named as Hind. They're named as India. Their understanding is Hind means India, and they have taken the name Hind. Even today, thousands of women have this name that they are Hind. So, because forever we've been known as one nation, for more than 10,000–15,000 years. This is because everywhere they went, they saw a nation was always built on the sameness of language, sameness of religion, sameness of ethnicity. But they found this land, there is no sameness anywhere. If you look from your neighbor to you, you're a different person, absolutely. You cook differently, they cook differently, you speak one language, they speak another language. But they called this one nation because this was the only nation which was a land of seekers, not a land of believers. This is why we have always identified as seekers. We are seekers of truth and liberation. Our highest value is not God. God means head. Our highest value has never been God. Our highest value has always been mukti and moksha, because this means liberation and freedom. Freedom has been our highest value. Now the so-called liberals are talking about freedom fresh as if they're talking about it for the first time. We've always held as the most sacred thing in our life is ultimate liberation of the human being. Not going to heaven, not the pleasures of heaven have never been eulogized in this culture. So our togetherness came because we were seekers. When we were seekers, the important thing about seeking is this: when you are believers, you will always get together. Because without getting together, see, if you just believe something all by yourself, you look stupid. You need 1,000 people around you who believe the same thing, otherwise you'll feel foolish. But when you become a seeker, you always want to be alone, because seeking is internal and individual. So because we were always individuals, we were never an organized group, we never had a situation where somebody could give us one rip-rap speech and get us all moving. There's never been like that. Still we are like that, I'm glad we are like that, but we need some organization to function in the modern world for sure.
No, that's a contradiction.
It is not.
Well, okay, Sadhguru, I personally feel that this whole dichotomy of what's happening in today's society and today's world, that we are individuals and we need to be organized as well, but what we face on on daily basis, it's something completely different, which, I mean, I'll tell you where, for me, like, it's very conflicting, because, like, I'm working on a martyrs biopic where there is a scene that the protagonist, Lakshmibai, she goes and she saves a calf. So my crew had a huge discussion. We halted the shoot and we were like, she can't save a calf. It has to be a lamb, because we don't want to look like cow savers. So my point is that when such a prejudice strikes, as a person, as a person, you feel very protective of who you are and what your values are, and you want to save all the animals. Why just cow? But you definitely want to save the cow for sure, because the prejudice is really agonizing. But a cow lynching takes place, a lynching for cow takes place, and you look like an idiot. And then you jump to the other side, which has been always criticizing and never wanting to be protecting cows. And you're like, these people look sensible, and these are so-called liberals. And now liberals, by definition, because I've learned English now just recently, so I have to access to dictionary for everything. So by the literal meaning, dictionary meaning of liberal is people who have acceptance for people, opinions, thoughts.
No, they are fanatics.
So that's what I'm saying. Now, Sadhguru, let me finish this question. So these liberals, they will not take you in their group unless you hate the same people as they do. So one thing, it's fine if this is for the betterment of the country. You don't mind hating on BJP. You don't mind believing that everything that is being done by, like literally Amit Shah is practically doing. That's fine. But what is... No, but what I don't get is, this I get. What I don't get is, what is their agenda and plan of action for bringing this country out of the pit? What is that they're doing? So when a war breaks, liberals are the first one to say, from my industry, people say, why should we be bothered with war? We are artists. To demotivating an army man who's protecting the borders for you. A rape takes place in Kashmir, and they say, Hindustan raped our daughter. To be pointing fingers at each other when the country is so vulnerable. And trying to break a civil war? Is that what liberals do? And you're like, wait a minute, the most sensible thing seems like to be a skeptic. But a skeptic is nothing but a space cadet. Doesn't know where he's going. So right now, we need a definite direction to go into. We cannot be stuck in the unfortunate loop of to be or not to be, to be or not to be. So what to do?
Wow. Well, for a long time, from that city that you were talking about, they always thought asking this question, to be or not to be, is the most intelligent thing to do. There. Because they rarely came to existential questions. Existential questions is a daily affair for us in this country. But they rarely came to it. So that is how rudimentary ways they addressed it. They thought it's the most intelligent question to ask, to be or not to be. I think it's the dumbest question to ask, because you have not tasted life. When you are really blissed out and ecstatic, do you ask to be or not to be? In some way you're frustrated, some way you're burdened, so you're asking to be or not to be. Leave that aside, that's the thing. First of all, today in the world, people who claim to be liberals are actually fanatics. If you do not agree with them, they'll finish you in some way. So, about Jhansi Rani saving the cow. Well, she is a woman who stands out in our history, and you're just fortunate that you…
But she did save a cow. I'm like, listen guys, rather than fighting, why don't you access the facts? They're like, she did save a cow, but we should not show it as a cow.
The thing is, we don't know who wrote the story. She didn't save one cow. Cows would have always been saved because in this country, which is a pastoral country, cow and cattle was the wealth of this nation. If you look back at Mahabharata, they're not talking about land as wealth. They're always talking about cattle as wealth, because land was there plenty. Cattle, how many thousand head of cattle did you own, decided how rich you are. So if somebody stole a cow, they caught you and beat you up, all right?
Yeah, that's how it is in back home as well. Like, I come from a village, and sometimes the only thing that they have is…
So, I'm saying this whole lynching debate that's going on in the country, these people who are talking about it have not seen India. They've not seen India at all. They're just living in cities and television studios and endlessly talking about these things. Let me say this clearly, I have always been connected with rural life. In my life, I have witnessed 3 lynchings. Okay, I witnessed. In 2, they were killed, in the other one, nearly killed. For what? One was because they believed this man could be stealing their children. People lynch, even recently it happened. If you steal their children, if you steal their cows, if you cut a tree and take it from his farm, these are 3 things for lynchings will happen. I have seen all 3 varieties. I tried to get into it and stop this. They said, you don't get into it, and pushed me aside. I knew the local sub-inspector who was a senior in my college.
Took place in Kashmir to be pointing out things like,
This wouldn't disturb anybody if it was Hollywood. Because a lot of them have cut their noses off and replaced.
But the criminals are not
Yes,
religions. Criminals cannot be associated with religion. That is just simply trying to
I don't think
instigate…
that was about religion at all. Anyway, that whole movement was not against religion. There are many political aspects to it. When this was happening in full flare, the Padmavat issue, and Prasun is here, so when they were burning buses, then I called somebody, a very responsible person in the country, and said, what is this? How are we allowing this to happen? If you don't like a movie, don't go. I don't go to the movies. So, if you don't like it, you don't go. Why do you have to burn a bus that people have to use tomorrow morning? They said, Sadhguru, they have all dressed up 100 women like brides, and they're sitting ready to burn by themselves, volunteers to burn. Today, if we handle them rough on the street, tomorrow if these 100 women, even if 10 of them burn themselves, it'll become an international issue. So let the buses burn for 1 or 2 days, then we will deal with it. I thought this is a strange kind of wisdom, but it is wisdom.
Okay.
So we need to understand this, instead of giving commentaries because somebody went to Western universities and came back giving that kind of commentary in this country without understanding the realities. No. There are unfortunate realities of various kinds of divisions that people are trying to play up. When they don't get any voice to say something, they will gather one caste together, they will gather one community together, or gather one group of language people together or religion together and do something on the street to get attention. The unfortunate way that this become a culture to get attention is burn the bus. People, tomorrow morning they'll have to walk to their place of work, but burn the bus and get attention. In every other country, if they want to protest, they burn old tires. I think our people don't know how to take the tires out, so they're burning the entire bus. It's a mechanical lapse.
Okay, Sadhguru, Indians are doing so well, whether it's the CEOs of Google, Microsoft, MasterCard, Nokia, the list goes on. All the chief executive, I have a whole list of those.
Pepsi's out, okay.
Yeah, so Indians are doing so well all over the world, but India is not doing well. Why is that?
Everybody in the world thinks India is doing very well, but here there is a commentary that India is not doing well. When I look at you, I see you're doing well. When I look at these people, I see they're doing well. But yes, it is a fact 40% of our population is still malnourished, unfortunately. This is because our focus in these last 70 years has largely been to industrialize, build cities and stuff. We have not focused sufficiently on our agriculture, enhancing rural life. Right now, we are pitching very hard to do this, and I think in many ways, the governments of today, particularly the central government, is very focused on seeing this happen. Well, it's not as easy as said, there are many challenges, but a clear plan at least is being evolved, how to make agriculture lucrative, how to make rural living in a village worthwhile, that even if you want to see a cinema, you don't have to go to the city, that living in a village should be worthwhile. So these…
Like China was also facing a similar problem a few years ago, and they have tackled it so well, and with us…
Don't say well, they've handled it. because you should know in China…
No, I don't know.
They were burying live children. Second child born, live children were just being buried in the hospitals. When that video was taken and it went viral around the world, they changed that to giving iodine injections to the brains of healthy children, second child. So you don't have the stomach nor the heart to do anything like that, so don't compare to China. But do we have to control our population? Absolutely.
So at least there should be tax on the third child?
What is that?
At least there should be tax on the third child, because they're using roads and river water which you're trying to save, and the oxygen from the trees which I am planting with many other people. So at least two children should be okay, but third one should have tax.
Don't say that because I'm the fourth among the siblings. I have a big tax sitting on my head. Definitely some incentives have to be done. Right now, when I spoke about this a year ago, there was a lot of controversy in the south. We've been trying to bring this in the villages. A voluntary year of no conception. All we need to do is, because our life expectancy has improved, it's not because an explosion of reproduction has happened. No, that's not true. It is our life expectancy is improving. That means we took our death into our hands, but we are not taking the birth into our hands. We have… See, just about 50 years ago, an average time when the first child happened to a young woman in this country was somewhere around 16 or 17 years of age. It's moved to about 24 right now, but we need to push this to 35.
So the common discussion which is going on is again about the refugees, and we being celebrities, we get these questions asked, and this is the most conflicting question ever, because as a nation, being a part of this country and knowing that so many of us don't even have access to food, education, electricity, absorbing more people into our population clearly isn't a good idea, but denying those people seems even worse. So what should be… again, where does spirituality comes here? What part does it play? And what happens to inclusiveness when such a thing happens?
You're picking on my yoga definition.
No! No, I clearly know that this is the worst thing to do right now, because they are coming in millions and millions and millions, where our own are starving. So it's like saying that I let my own child die, but I save the neighbor's one. So, I mean, what sort of negotiation is that?
If that was the intent, I would bow down to such people. I will let my own child, but I'll save your child. I will bow down to such people if they exist. But that's not the thing. We are trying to project our inefficiency as compassion. I don't like that. We don't know how to man our borders, but we are talking about compassion. That's not the truth. We're just projecting our inefficiency as some kind of a great value. There's no value to that. So, talking about influx of people from outside, see, when somebody comes to the nation's door because they are violently persecuted somewhere, we should treat it differently. After all, they are human beings. But
for a few politicians…
Unfortunately, nation's interests are being sacrificed for personal ambitions. That is there in this country, what to do?
But it still is a very conflicting thing, because…
See, if you want to be really inclusive, we can make the two countries into one. Yes. We can make Bangladesh into a union territory and make it a part of this country, then everybody can go across. Like you come from Pondicherry or anywhere else, like that you can go where you want. Are you ready for that? If you're ready for that, I think India is ready for that. If you talk about inclusiveness, that's a way to include, isn't it? Not slipping into my house from the back door and saying, include me, it's not going to work.
Okay, now we'll move to your favorite topic.
What is that? I didn't know you figured out all those things.
Okay, now we move to Shiva. So Shiva is what I got from reading about it and doing my practices and spending time with you, Shiva is not somebody looking, like sitting up there and looking at all of us. Shiva is a dimension. It is what they say in science, a black hole where nothingness seems to be the origin of universe, where everything seems to be coming out of nothingness and being swallowed into nothingness. That very nothingness is Shiva. So anybody who accesses that dimension, if you access that, you become Shiva. If I tap into that, I can become Shiva. But, okay, tell me that so Adi Yogi, the very first yogi, was somebody who has access to that dimension. So why is it that you are obsessed with Adi Yogi? Isn't it like making it about the container and not the contained? Sadhguru, isn't it like that? Like you only talk about Adi Yogi. It's like Adi Yogi is the container.
Till now I have not said a word about him. You brought him.
No, but you've made the sculpture of Adi Yogi and you...
Yeah, it's only 1.5 years old, but you're not checking what I was doing this 36 years. Let's come to that, that's fine. See, about Adi Yogi is not an obsession, or the Adi Yogi is a plan. I should not… Mumbai is not…
No, reveal it.
Mumbai is not the best place to reveal it, but now that you asked…
So judgmental.
Let's go. That's her next movie, she's promoting it. Everybody must watch this Mental and Manikarnika, everything, okay? I'm promoting it so that… So, you talked about nothing. We must understand this nothing. English language has certain limitations on these aspects, but we can, because we are speaking that language, we can manipulate it a little bit. If you want to understand nothing, you must put a hyphen between no and thing. It's not a thing. That doesn't mean it does not exist. This would have been a ridiculous statement for the Western minds. I'm saying Western minds because all of us are Western educated. Maybe we're living in India, we've born in India, grown up in India, but we are all Western educated. For a Western mind, this would be a ridiculous idea. Of a couple of decades or maybe 3 decades ago, it would have been so. But now, science is talking about no things. That means non-physical dimension of existence, something that is not a thing, but still a powerful force. When I say something that's not a thing, we are not talking about nuclear energy, we are not talking about, electrical energy or amagnetism or anything. Simply nothingness is tremendously powerful. Today they…
Like I've heard about many, like say Krishna or Muhammad or Ram or Christ, Buddha, all the enlightened people who've been on this planet, there is some sort of mention of their birth or death. But when it comes to Shiva, like you say, and I've read that he was self-created. And I often ask you this question, that did he disappear into thin air, and apparently something like that happened. He couldn't even have biological children with any of the women he was married to. Also, he…
At least you can't blame him for the population.
Sadhguru, I'm coming to something very important. There is a theory…
I thought population was very important
No.
too.
There is a theory that Shiva is alien.
See, till now you've been talking about inclusiveness and suddenly you call somebody an alien.
No, Sadhguru, there is a theory…
I must tell you this, every time I enter United States, at the immigration, I end up standing in that line which says, resident alien. I look around and see I'm the only one who fits the description.
Sadhguru, let me finish this question. So there is this theory… that…
She won't let you go.
No, that everything that humans encounter, whether it's an idea, it's a thought, it's anything that they encounter, it's been transmitted into them through an outer space, an outer being. My favorite director, Christopher Nolan, made this film, Interstellar, which is one of my favorite films, where they are constantly referring to certain beings as they. They are communicating, they are talking to us, they are doing this, but they never really clarified who they were. Like, were they aliens, were they gods, who they were? And Sadhguru, like this, I think I felt it in, like when any creative idea comes to me, it has absolutely no intellectual grounds where I can go back and track it down. It's literally like a mail dropped in my head. It seems like it's from an outside space.
This is not a confession.
I know it's a confession, but Sadhguru, is it that we are being operated by an external, sort of outside beings? Is it that?
Well, people who have no faith in human intelligence are looking up that intelligence will come from somewhere else. What we need to understand is, see, there are certain things which are very significant things in this country which unfortunately this present generation has completely forgotten, or very few people are reminded, and the rest of the world, some places they recognize, rest of the places it's not there. What the thing is just this. Here we consider things like this. For example, in yoga, we call your spine the center of the universe. We call it Merudanda. That means it's the axis of the universe. What is a universe? Please understand this. Today scientists are admitting it is an endless universe. Forever they said, if you travel this many million light years, you will reach the end of the universe. But now they're admitting it's an endless universe. Forever we've been saying it's an ever-expanding universe. So we said, your spine is the axis of the universe. That sounds ridiculous. Even without putting any load, most people's backs are hurting badly. They can't even walk or run or do anything. If this…
That Nirmalananda finally acquired Mahasamadhi, and so did your wife, which is the saving grace of the whole episode. Okay, so my last question is, Sadhguru, that about our youth. Apparently the statistics say that every 1 hour, actually less than an hour, a young person below 25 is committing suicide. Why is that? I mean, there's a time to die and you can utilize Mahasamadhi for that, but why die before 25?
Suicide is not a pleasant thing. Not at all a pleasant thing, because for a human being to make… See, when somebody dies, commits suicide, we're just thinking, okay, he committed suicide. It's not like that. You must look at what psychologically that person goes through to come to that decision. It's the most horrible part of one's life, where somewhere they feel so trapped, either by physical situations, financial situations, or emotional situations, so absolutely trapped when there is no other way. This is when they take that kind of violent exit, which we call as suicide. And if someone tries to kill somebody, that somebody has some defense. They can fight, they can run, they can protect themselves. Some resistance is possible. But when you start hurting this one, this is the most helpless life. And it is the worst kind of torture that you can do is to torture this one, because this is an absolutely helpless life with yourself, isn't it? Somebody else has some defenses. So suicide need not be seen in terms of statistics, 1 hour they're dying. Even if one person commits suicide, it's a human concern. It must be a concern for the whole humanity. Why is this happening? You must understand, in this country, in 2017,
My message to all the youth who are going to participate in this, you can ask Sadhguru all kind of questions, why, about monthly cycles, about sex, drugs, all the scandalous questions
They know all those things.
No, they don't. Sadhguru, they are being a victim of drug overdose. There are so many, drugs has become a big epidemic, especially in schools and colleges. So guys, I look forward to those conversations and ask exciting questions. Okay,
this is being pitched as Youth and Truth, unplug with Sadhguru. Ask whatever you want.
Ask whatever you want.
Nothing is a taboo.
Yeah. So how much time do we have for questions?
Please. Well, if you're thinking of where in terms of…
Okay, this is the last question we answer. Yes.
So when we say we have patterns…
Thank you, Sadhguru. Thank you, Kangana. I think it was a session that was as engaging as we all thought it would be.